Hi, friend, and welcome back to Torches, Yoga, and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. Today, I want to talk a little bit less about how we practice mindfulness. Certainly, I'll give you some exercises and some things you can implement into your daily routine, but I want to talk more about what mindfulness is and what it looks like in our different lives. So, mindfulness is a lifestyle, but it's not a lifestyle that requires us to change our existing lifestyle. It's just about changing how we approach it. It's a shift in our approach to life that allows us to be more present, engaged, and aware. And the best part is we don't have to carve out any extra time. We can bring mindfulness into whatever we're doing, wherever we are at. While there are wonderful mindfulness exercises for healing, that's not all it's about. It's for more than just healing. Do you feel bored? Just general, bored with life? Or lost? Do you feel like you don't know what you should be doing next or where you should be going, or if it's okay just to be where you are? If you're bored, maybe you hit all the milestones, everything you had planned out, you did it all, and now what? It just feels unfulfilling and maybe empty. Or maybe the plan didn't work out, and now you're left just kind of wondering, going through the motions, wondering what's next. Mindfulness can help with all of this. We can find fulfillment in even the smallest day-to-day tasks. And with mindfulness, we can uncover your deepest desires and break down the limiting beliefs that are keeping you from achieving them. So mindfulness can take many forms, and it can look like different things for different people. Most people who are unfamiliar with mindfulness may think it's just sitting in silence or meditating for hours on end. And while meditation can certainly help, it is by no means the only way to get there. We can engage in mindful movement. Now, yoga and Tai Chi, those are the traditional versions, but even a walk can be a mindfulness practice if you're focusing on the rhythm of your steps, on the sensations in your body, focusing on your breath as you move. If your mobility is limited or walking's not your thing, something I like to offer in place of mindful movement is savoring. Savoring a moment. Now, even if you're in a boring, bland, maybe even unfavorable moment, taking a moment to take a look around at the environment and notice something. Notice something that pleases you, something that you might find quirky. I like when I'm like fighting for a parking spot at the grocery store, even in that kind of unfavorable, icky kind of situation, I like when I see the same color cars parked next to each other, like 3 white cars in a row. It's just nice symmetry. So just finding something like that in a moment, something to savor in the moment, whether it's something you find beautiful, something you find quirky, something that piques your interest or curiosity. And then we can even take it a step further and bring in gratitude practice there. Taking a moment to appreciate that beauty, that quirkiness, that uniqueness of that experience. Maybe you've done the breath thing, maybe you've done the walking thing or the movement thing, and that's not really helping for you. Have you tried mindful eating? If snacks are involved, I'm always down for it. So with mindful eating, when we sit down to a meal, or even if it's just a snack, instead of just digging in and going for it, take a moment. Smell the aromas of the food. Notice the colors and textures. And when you bite it, feel that crunch sensation or that soft, fluffy sensation. Just allow that eating to also be an opportunity to intentionally practice your mindfulness. We can even be mindful at work. Did you know, as much as your boss would hate for me to tell you, but did you know multitasking actually decreases your productivity? Yeah. So instead of having your focus on multiple different tasks at a time, focus on one, start to finish, or start to where you can find a clear stopping point. Bring your full attention into that one task, get through it, and you'll move on much faster and with more accuracy than you would if you were multitasking. Mindfulness doesn't mean forcing stillness. It means we move, and we move with full intention and bring our full awareness to whatever it is we're doing, wherever we are doing it. Did you also know there's science behind mindfulness? If you're new here, Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've seen some of my other videos, you may have caught on that I'm a little bit of a fan of fun facts. And there are a lot of fun facts and science behind our mindfulness practices. Mindfulness first showed up in the West in the 1970s, but since then, it has been implemented into modern healthcare and psychology, and it's sparking studies to figure out how it works and what parts of our lives and our bodies it impacts. Studies show that mindfulness literally changes our brains. Research from Harvard and UCLA has found that mindfulness increases gray matter density in the areas of our brain that's associated with memory and learning and emotional regulation. So the thicker gray matter means stronger connections between our neurons in our brain. And that stronger connection means we have better memory, we're more receptive to learning, and we're better at regulating our emotions. It also reduces activity in the amygdala, and that's the part of our brain that's in charge of our fight or flight, in charge of charging up our emotional response. So with that dampened activity from our mindful living practices, we're less reactive. Mindfulness is so effective, hospitals and therapists use it as part of their treatment for anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and PTSD, and so much more. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, are strongly backed by science and widely used as therapy techniques. Before we talk about some other stuff, do y'all want to try a technique that's proven to quickly reduce your stress and bring you out of that fight or flight and into a more calm state? This is what I like to call one of my rescue inhaler moves. Because not every mindfulness techniques we're going to be able to pull out in any given situation. I can't stop in the heat of a moment and be like, hey, I need to go meditate for 5 minutes. Sometimes we can, and that's wonderful. But sometimes our lives don't allow for that. So we need some rescue inhalers, something that I can pull out instantly and use just maybe discreetly right then in the heat of a moment so I can bring myself back to a more calm, objective state. And in doing so, I'll be able to handle the situation a lot better. So this really cool technique, it's called bilateral tapping. And it can look like different things. You can do the taps different places in your body. But bilateral tapping comes from the idea of bilateral stimulation. We're stimulating the right hemisphere of the brain and the left hemisphere of the brain in this rhythmic pattern. And when we do so, it kind of puts the brain to communicating each side with each other, but it forces them to do so in a more efficient manner, calming everything down. Now, the bilateral tapping can look like that butterfly hug in that other video where I don't know if I'll mess up my mic here, but where we'll place our hands, thumbs together and hands over our chest, and you just tap side to side. You can do a couple each side, keeping it rhythmic and symmetric. If you need to be more discreet about it, yeah, y'all can kind of see. I'll do it a little exaggerated. You can just tap on your legs. If you need to do it quietly while you're at work, maybe under a desk. If you're in a space where you have the freedom to have a little bit more movement and people aren't going to look at you like you're odd, you can hug yourself and just tap your arms on either side one at a time. That bilateral tapping, it engages the right hemisphere of the brain and the left hemisphere of the brain. And this leads us to better emotional regulation so we don't sink into the boredom or get pulled down by the anxiety. So have you ever wondered why your mind wanders? Have you ever wondered if other people struggle with this too? Or are you on the other side of that thought where maybe you blame yourself? You think there might be something wrong with you because your mind wanders so much. Well, I am happy to tell you, you are not the only one. A Harvard study found that our minds wander 47% of the time. Now let's unpack that for a second. Somebody had to have the thought of, my mind's wandering a lot. Is it only me? Oh, maybe it's you too. Maybe they talk to a friend and they're like, oh, it's you too. Your mind wanders too. I wonder if this is people like in our arena or if everybody experiences this. So these people were like, let's collect a whole group of people. Let's use our resources and figure out if it's just our mind that wanders or if it's everybody else's too. That's crazy. So while finding out that they're not the only ones with a wandering mind. We all do it 47% of the time. They also found that these wandering thoughts more often than not lead to unhappiness. But the good news is, the more we are present, the more content we are. To practice mindfulness, it's not some crazy elaborate rituals and meditations we have to take part in. You don't have to practice yoga 5 days a week and Tai Chi the other 2. All we have to do is make a shift. And to start that shift, we just choose presence. It's the little things. Take a deep breath before you check your phone. Enjoy your morning coffee instead of just drinking it on autopilot. Listen intently when a friend, coworker, or loved one is speaking to you, instead of thinking of what you might say in response. Notice how your feet feel on the ground as you take each step, and try single tasking instead of multitasking. Each small moment of mindfulness and awareness we have rewires our brain. And over time, mindfulness becomes not just something we do, but it's a way we live and the way our brain operates, as opposed to the frantic stress thought spirals or boredom. As your mindfulness coach, please remember I offer remote and in-person sessions with a wide range of options and costs to meet you where you're at. We can work together to bring life back into your life. Let me know how I can help. And I always say we're a community here. We're here for sharing and learning from each other. So if you've got some mindfulness practices that you use in your daily life, we'd love to see them in the comments. Maybe we can even talk more about them in our next video. All right, friend. So before I sign off today, let's take a moment to tap into our parasympathetic nervous system and get ourselves out of that fight or flight and get back into the peace and contentedness that we deserve. A Stanford University study found that this exercise we're about to try and the vagus nerve exercise we've tried in another video, these are the quickest ways to reduce stress in real time. These are those rescue inhaler exercises. So for this exercise, it's just a simple breathing technique. We'll take a deep breath in through our nose, and then when we fill up our lungs, we're going to take one more quick, short inhale to really maximize the oxygen, and then we'll hold it for just a beat and release slowly out our mouth. I'll demonstrate, and then we can do it together. Okay? Simple as that, friend. Let's try it together. Inhale. Don't forget that short extra puff there at the end. That really helps open up all our pockets in our lungs, get them fully invigorated with that fresh oxygen. And then that deep sigh out our mouth that's longer than the inhale. If you try a couple of those in a row and you find your eyes are kind of watering, you get the urge to swallow or yawn or maybe even stretch, then you know you're on the right track. Friend, thank you so much for joining me today. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I'll see you soon.